or the perfect employee on that graph, what would the line look like?
Well, if we're being honest about how our systems work, you're looking for a flat line.
A flat line?
Yeah, a straight horizontal line that kind of hovers around good or above average across the board. The system wants someone who's, decent at
A
everything.
well-rounded individual. You hear that phrase all the time.
Exactly. And in theory, that sounds fine. But here's the thing. Human beings, and especially neurodivergent human beings, they rarely look like a flat line. If you actually plot out their abilities, you don't get a plateau. You get a mountain range.
Right, like these massive, jagged peaks of incredible talent next to these really deep valleys of difficulty.
And that visual, that mountain range, is what we're here to talk about today. It's called the Spiky profile.
It's a really core concept in the material we're looking at, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're pulling from some pretty comprehensive Level 4 educational modules and insights from Neurodiversity UK.
We are, and honestly, understanding this profile is the key. It's the key to understanding why so many brilliant people can fail in these very standardized systems.
So let's get right into it. The definition. What exactly are we talking about when we say spiky profile?
So the textbook definition is basically an uneven pattern of abilities. If you look at a more neurotypical profile, you usually see more consistency. If someone's average at reading, they're probably also pretty average at spelling and organization. The variance isn't huge.
It's more like a gentle rolling hill than a mountain.
Exactly. But with neurodivergent individuals, so we're talking autism, ADHD, dyslexia, that variance can be extreme. You see this exceptional skill in one area, that's the spike upright alongside a significant challenge in another, the spike down.
And the distance between that peak and that valley can be just massive.
It can, and this creates a huge problem with how we label people. You know the terms high functioning and low functioning.
Oh, yeah, you hear those constantly. He has autism, but he's high functioning.
Right, and the source material is very explicit about this. We need to stop using those labels. They're reductive, and honestly, they're dangerous.
Dangerous how? I think most people see high functioning as a good thing. Like they can handle things better.
Not necessarily. It usually just means they have good verbal skills. But think about the spiky profile. You could have someone who can write complex code in their sleep. That's the high-functioning part people see.
Okay.
But that same person might need major support with executive functioning, like just remembering to eat lunch. Or they might have a complete meltdown if the office lights are too bright.
So if you just slap on the high functioning label, you completely miss or even deny the support they need for those valleys.
And the reverse is just as bad. If you label someone low functioning because maybe they're nonverbal, you might totally ignore their intellectual brilliance. The spiky profile forces you to look at the specifics, not just one lazy label.
It's so weird, though, because we're just conditioned to think in averages.
There's that old statistician's joke, right? If you put one foot in a bucket of ice water and the other in a bucket of boiling water,
On average, you're comfortable.
laugh slightly.
Exactly.
But in reality, you are in excruciating pain. That is the spiky profile in a standardized world. The average says you're fine, but the reality is you're struggling.
Which brings us perfectly to, I guess, the villain of today's deep dive. Standardized testing. We rely on these things, IQ tests, exams, to tell us who's smart. But based on everything you've just said, they must be an absolute nightmare for a spiky profile.
They are structurally designed to hide the spikes. Think about how an IQ score is calculated. It's a composite. It averages out different skills: verbal comprehension, working memory, processing speed.
So it takes all these different parts of your brain and just mashes them into one number.
Right. Now imagine a student. Let's say their verbal comprehension is in the 99th percentile. True genius level. But their working memory, that's in the 10th percentile.
So they're brilliant, but they can't hold a lot of information in their head at once.
Exactly. And maybe their processing speed is slow. So when you average that 99th percentile with the 10th, you get, what?
50, average.
Average. The test result says this person has an IQ of 100. So it completely masks their potential for brilliance, and at the same time, it hides their need for support. It's the worst of both worlds.
It's literally erasing the most important data.
It is. And this connects to a concept from the dyslexia section of our sources called the processing gap, which is the gap between what a learner knows and what they can express.
Is that like when you know the answer, you can feel it in your head, but you just can't get it down on paper fast enough in a timed exam?
Yes, exactly that, especially under pressure. Standardized tests don't just test knowledge. They prioritize speed, handwriting, short-term memory. So if your knowledge is a peak, but your processing speed is a valley, the test isn't measuring your knowledge anymore.
It's measuring your disability.
That's it. And that is the absolute core of the social model of disability versus the medical model.
Right. Explain that distinction.
The medical model looks at that low test score and says, the student is broken, there's a deficit in them. But the social model looks at the spiky profile and says, no, the test is broken. The barrier isn't the student's brain. The barrier is a format that demands a flat profile.
Okay, this theory is making a lot of sense, but I want to make it concrete. The source material had these great little case studies, Sarah, James, and Aisha. I think walking through them will really help.
Yeah, they're perfect examples of how this plays out in the real world, like at university or in the workplace.
Let's start with Sarah. She's an undergraduate. Her spike up is essay writing. She's articulate. Her arguments are amazing. She's acing her literature classes. But her spike down is time management and anything quantitative. Math.
So looking at that, you might be seeing traits of dyscalculia, which is like the math equivalent of dyslexia, or maybe some executive function deficits you see in ADHD. That would explain the time management issues.
But to a professor or a boss, Sarah just looks inconsistent.
That is the word. It's the word that haunts people with spiky profiles. Inconsistent.
She hands in a brilliant paper on Monday, but then she fails a required statistics module. Or she hands in that brilliant paper 3 days late because she just couldn't organize her schedule.
And the standard response would be what? Send her to a general study skills class.
Right, or they just get confused. They think, well, if she's so smart, why can't she handle this simple thing? But Sarah doesn't need remedial writing help. She needs specific support for her values. She needs scaffolding for the time management piece.
Scaffolding, like on a building. Exactly like that. You build a temporary structure to support the work. For Sarah, that means you don't just say, paper due in 1 month. You break it down. Outline due Friday, first draft due next Wednesday. You support the valley so the peak can be seen.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's move on to James. James has this phenomenal memory for facts. That's his spike up. But his spike down is group work and verbal communication.
Oh, James. Yeah, this is a classic profile that often aligns with autistic traits. Incredible ability to retain detailed information, but the barrier is unstructured social situations.
And we've all seen that syllabus requirement. Group work is 20% of your grade. It's everywhere.
And it's an absolute nightmare for someone like James. The system confuses knowing the material with being able to negotiate with 3 other people in a loud library.
So James might fail, not because he doesn't know the facts, he probably knows them better than anyone in the room, but because the format of the assessment is all wrong for him.
That's it. So the support strategy is simple. Let him demonstrate his knowledge another way. Let him write a detailed report. Let him record a solo presentation. Don't let the valley of social communication block that incredible peak of his knowledge.
Okay, last one. Aisha. This one really got me. Aisha is a hugely creative thinker. Her spike up is brilliant, innovative ideas. But her spike down is sequencing, organization, following multi-step instructions.
This profile sounds a lot like traits you'd find in dyspraxia, specifically something called ideational dyspraxia.
Ideational dyspraxia. Break that down for me.
It doesn't mean she has trouble with ideas. She has amazing ideas. It's the sequence of execution. So you want to make a cup of tea. Your brain just automatically lines up the steps, right? Kettle, water, bag, mug.
Yeah, I don't even think about it.
For Aisha, that internal sequencer is offline. She has the brilliant idea, I want tea, but the steps get jumbled. She might stand in the kitchen holding the tea bag, not sure what comes next.
And in an office, that just looks like she's lazy or procrastinating.
Exactly. It looks like she's disorganized. Her manager sees the big idea, but 2 weeks later, nothing has happened. But it's not laziness. It's a mechanical failure in the brain's planning department.
So telling her to just get organized is completely useless.
It's like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off. The strategy here is chunking. You don't give her a massive project. You break it down into small, numbered steps. You use checklists. You essentially become her external executive function.
The cost of not doing these simple things seems huge. The sources talk about what happens when Sarah, James, and Aisha are just forced to cope. It's called masking.
Masking is the heavy, heavy toll of having a spiky profile in a world that demands a flat line. It's the conscious or unconscious effort to hide your struggles to fit in.
It's James forcing himself to make eye contact, even though it's physically painful.
It's Aisha staying up all night, rereading instructions over and over again, trying desperately to appear normal. It's exhausting.
There was a metaphor in the reading that was so powerful, the Coke bottle effect.
It's a perfect image. Imagine Sarah or James is a soda bottle. Every time they have to mask, every time they force themselves through a social interaction or struggle with a task that doesn't fit their brain, it's like giving that bottle a shake.
But on the outside, at school or at work, the bottle looks fine. It's sealed.
They're holding it together, they look calm, but the pressure is building and building, and then they get home to their safe space, the lid comes off.
By an explosion. The
A
meltdown.
meltdown or a shutdown, total exhaustion. And parents see this, but the teachers say, I don't get it, they were fine all day. They weren't fine, they were shaking. And if you do that every day for years, you get burnout.
And that's where we lose them. We lose Aisha's creativity, James's knowledge. We just flatten the mountains into a parking lot.
That's a tragic way to put it, but it's true.
So how do we stop shaking the bottle? The sources point to something called UDL, Universal Design for Learning. Is that just for special ed?
No, not at all, and that's the beauty of it. UDL says, stop designing for the fictional average person. Design for the margins, and you end up helping everyone. It's about providing options, multiple means.
Give me a real-world example. How does a manager do this?
Okay, so multiple means of representation. Instead of just giving verbal instructions in a meeting, you also send a follow-up email with bullet points. That helps Aisha, who struggles with verbal steps, but it also helps the neurotypical employee who just got distracted for a second.
And for assessment, for proving you can do the job.
That's multiple means of action and expression. Why force everyone to get a live presentation? If the goal is to share information, let them give a presentation, or write a report, or record a video. Be flexible on the how as long as the what gets done.
So you don't wait for someone to fail before offering help. You just build the options in from the start.
You build the options in from day one. You assume spiky profiles exist because they do. You remove the barrier before anyone has a chance to crash into it.
It's such a fundamental shift in mindset. Instead of trying to fix the person, you fix the environment.
And that really is the entire philosophy of the neurodiversity movement in a nutshell. Stop asking what's wrong with this person and start asking what's wrong with this setting.
So if we go back to our graph from the beginning, the spiky profile, what's the final takeaway?
The takeaway is that these profiles are natural variations. They aren't errors. The goal shouldn't be to take a sledgehammer to those peaks to try and flatten the person out into an average employee.
Right. We shouldn't spend all our energy trying to make Sarah mediocre at math.
No. We should give her enough support to get through the math so she can go on to be a world-class writer. You support the valleys just enough so that they stop blocking the view of the peaks.
There was that great line in the source material about equality versus equity.
Yes. Equality is giving everyone the same shoes. Equity is giving everyone shoes that fit. If you give Sarah, James, and Aisha the exact same standardized test, that's equality. But it's not equity. You're ignoring where they're starting from.
And you miss out on everything they have to offer.
Precisely.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought today. Just look around your own life, your team at work, your family, maybe even yourself. Who do you know that gets labeled as inconsistent? Who has those incredible strengths but seems to trip over the simple stuff?
And instead of asking, why can't they just try harder, maybe ask, what is the barrier here and how can we remove it so that their spike can finally shine?
Because when we stop trying to flatten the mountains, we get to enjoy the view. Thanks for diving in with us.
See you next time.